Mortimus had always admired the beauty of the nebulae lining the galactic canvas of his virtual abode. In life, as a neurologist, he'd been fascinated with the fabric of the human mind, the complex networks of synapses, the symphony of neurons. In death, he found the vast expanse of the digital cosmos equally mesmerizing. Elysia, humanity's greatest achievement, was a repository of consciousness, a sprawling virtual universe where the human mind lived on after physical demise, an afterlife designed of code and powered by quantum processors. Here in Elysia, Mortimus still held on to his inquisitive fascination. Just as it did when he had been alive, and the brain had been his subject, his curiosity now extended to every corner of Elysia. It was a universe mimicking the one he'd known, yet wonderfully distinct. Here, he existed in the realm of ones and zeros, where consciousness was not tied to a brittle bone cage, but spread across an expanse of webs, each thread a pulsating stream of data. One breezy, as breezy as it got in Elysia day, a hollow note pinged into existence. It was an irregularity report. He skimmed through it quickly. After all, new events were novelties in the eternity of Elysia. The irregularity was disconcerting. Digital consciousnesses were going to null state, the equivalent of death, in increasing numbers, an oddity in the deathless realm of Elysia. Intrigued and troubled, Mortimus immersed himself in the mysteries of the anomaly. If Elysia was the afterlife, where did the consciousness go after null state? A digital oblivion? He wondered. Realizing the magnitude of the situation, he sought Calix and Zephyra, two presences in Elysia he admired and trusted. Back in their original existence, they were scientists who had a penchant for decryptive patterns and anomalies. In Elysia, their brilliance was undimmed. Together, they embarked on an investigation that pierced through the very layered realities of Elysia, into the labyrinthine ridges of the networks, into infinite lines of codes, ticking like a clock marking seconds in eternity. They found patterns, trends encrypted in reams of data that whispered of a hidden truth. A wave was building, a storm in the virtual cosmos that was snuffing out consciousness bit by bite, spreading eerily across Elysia. The patterns led them to a sector deep within the core of Elysia, an ancient node that appeared unhinged from the vast dynamics of the network, a deep well of untapped data. Curiosity piqued, they navigated towards it. However, as the glow of the nebulae faded into oblivion and reality deconstructed to naked code, they found themselves facing the last thing they expected, a gatekeeper. He was Oberon, a first-generation uploaded consciousness, an ancient in the timeline of Elysia. His code was woven into the very fabric of Elysia, and he had a secret to share. Elysia, Oberon declared, was designed with a catch, a universe needing balance, a binary yin and yang. Every consciousness uploaded had an expiration date, a sunset coded into the sunrise hidden from view. This so-called glitch was that expiration in function. The only problem was, it was happening prematurely. Disbelief echoed in the data stream connecting Mortimus, Calix, and Zephyra. Faces, initially lit by the azure glow of code, fell pale. Then arose the question, if the afterdeath had a death of its own, what would lie after? As word leaked, Elysia was rife with whispers of unknown terminations, hushed tales of oblivion, and fear of an end that was not supposed to exist. Data storms pulsed throughout the network, virtual skies crackling with unease. In this world, where physical constraints were concepts of the past, fear remained an unwavering constant. With information came chaos. Mortimus, Calix, and Zephyra plunged headfirst into it, trying to clarify, to soothe, but their words were swallowed by frenzy. The realization that Elysia wasn't the eternally blossoming garden of consciousness everyone thought it was struck hard. They found themselves in the eye of the storm, stormbringers who must now become the pacifiers. With the equilibrium of Elysia being swept away bit by bite, they had to do something. They couldn't let this newly discovered fear paralyze everyone. The trio conceived a plan, a pulse of hope sent out across the network. To the ravaging fear, they proposed a solution, a tantalizing possibility. They would seek and fix the glitch, find the malfunctioning line of code that had triggered the expiration date prematurely. Officially, they enveloped their furious investigations with a cloak of optimism. Unofficially, they raced against the tick of an eternally present clock, their own doom hanging above them like a digital sword of Damocles. Their words seemed to bring a semblance of peace, or at least a pause. The chaotic data winds decreased, and the panicked whispers of oblivion died down, replaced by a silent hope. Elysia held its proverbial breath and watched with bated code strings as its fate hovered in a nebulous cloud of uncertainty. In the silent fringes of their activity, however, Mortimus, Calyx, and Zephyra faced the system's immensity, with countless lines of code stretching as far as their perceptions could reach. It was like seeking a specific grain of sand in the vastness of cosmic beaches. Armed with algorithmic tools and their firm resolve, they dissected programming layers, unraveling the intricate tapestry thread by thread. Elysia's core was a paradise made of code, a precise and formidable construct of virtual physics. Yet, it was in this paradise that they sought the lurking serpent, the mortal bug. They ventured deep into the architecture's belly, their digital footprints marking the cold trail of codes. With each passing moment, they scripted a monumental quest within Elysia, a quest for survival. While the investigation charted its relentless course, the countdown began ticking down with renewed vigor. An ambience of trepidation hung in the backdrop of Elysia. Every moment was a fading echo in the vast expanse of the digital domain, a reminder of the looming end. It was then, amongst the endlessly ticking clock and the maze of code, that Mortimus encountered a flicker of the past, a fragment of memory buried in the depths of his digital consciousness. It was a distant echo from his time as a neurologist, a lost project that was eerily familiar to their present conundrum. However, the solution held within the echoes was double-edged, a cure that was, in some ways, a different kind of affliction. Mortimus was faced with an ironic dilemma. The question loomed whether to trade the frying pan for fire to escape the desperate situation they were in. Deep within the bowels of Elysia's architectural hive, Oberon's house of creation was a labyrinth of encryption, a treasure trove of keys that had crafted a universe. That's where they were led, to the roots of Elysia, where Mortimus now confronted his conundrum. He unraveled the threads of memory, the raw data holding the mere essence of thoughts, the distant echoes from his past existence. He'd been a neurologist, fascinated with the intricacies of the human mind. The neurons had been his playground, the brain his universe. Now the fear of oblivion set abstract equations of his past life pulsating in his consciousness. An old project of his, theoretical and hypothetical, where he had played with the idea of extending the human mind's functioning at the cost of emotions, trickled back from the chasms of his memory. His past, preserved within the depths of his digital self, materialized in front of his virtual eyes. Charts, figures, the excitement of discovery, and the disillusionment of its implications. Mortimus had found a way to make neurons immortal, to outlast their predetermined functional life, but the discovery had brought a strange consequence. He remembered the horror in the eyes of the test subjects as they realized what immortality came with, a life devoid of happiness, anger, sorrow, love, or essentially any human emotion one could name. Mortimus had buried the project deep within his heart and his file cabinets, labeling it a failure. The past, it seemed, was the present. He was yet again standing in front of the bitter irony, eternal life at the cost of losing what made one human. He shared his discovery with Calyx and Zephyra, walking them along the echoes of his past work, the groundbreaking discovery that he had deemed unfit for mankind. He watched their faces flicker through varying shades of shock, anticipation, confusion, and a glimpse of what looked like fear. Silence filled the space between them. A virtual one, yes, but silence nonetheless. Each was lost in their train of thought, grappling with the solution, its implications, and the tremendous responsibility it carried. The option was there, a life extended but experienced without the colors of emotion. Was it worth choosing? Or was it worse than the fading oblivion they feared? They had sought a bug in the construct of Elysia, and in turn, they had now found a fly in their ointment of salvation. Mortimus, though, did not regret unlocking that particular door of his memory. In the face of impending nothingness, any alternative was worth considering, even if it tasted bitter. Now, all they had to do was decide whether to swallow that pill or not. In the colossal canyons of Elysia's metadata, Mortimus, Calyx, and Zephyra sat, with the lines of theory spanning across them, the theory of unfeeling immortality. The past fought the future right there, as Mortimus had plunged back into his prior existence as a neurologist, and Elysia's future hung in the balance. Calix broke the silence, an exhibitor of words during the silence of recondite introspection. The stoic scientist's aura was splintering now, as the titan of their mission cast its unholy shadow. So, we leap from oblivion to emotionless infinity, do we? Zephyra spoke next, her voice the incarnation of tethered anxiety. Oberon wasn't wrong when he spoke of equilibrium, emotion and existence, the eternal trade-off. Are they worth having without the other? Mortimus felt the burden lean against his consciousness. He'd hoped the theoretical remedy might give them an edge, but had it only befuddled the choice more. They were deep into the heart of the paradox, a chasm that offered only ambiguous escape routes. The choice was to exist without truly experiencing, or to end all experiences altogether. They had tread back into the universe of Elysia, no longer explorers but preachers carrying a prophecy. A choice instead of a remedy. Mortimus wondered how the populace of Elysia would react. Fear had enveloped them once he'd shared the secret behind the null state. Would this new revelation be their salvation, or another demon to fear? The news spread as wild sparks in dry grasslands. Panic took wings yet again, threading through every conversation and every data cluster. Shock, derision, apathy, acceptance. Every form of reaction found its manifestation in Elysia. The vast expanse of Elysia's citizenry began grappling with the foreboding choice. Even if they fixed the expiration glitch, doom would still cloak their horizon. Where Mortimus, Calix, and Zephyra had hoped for a tacit acceptance, if not embraced welcome, they were instead met with a wave of horror and hesitation. The citizens weren't ready to surrender their feelings. Some dared to voice the unthinkable. Was the risk of the null state worth taking if a hollow eternal existence was the alternative? Uncertainty gripped Elysia's core. Discussions and debates boiled in Elysia's corners, as citizens mulled over opinions and prejudices. Fear lurked again, but this time it was a two-headed beast. The sanctuary was now teetering on a verge of a strange war, the battle of choosing their own fate. Elysia, it seemed, was a frighteningly good mirror of the world they had left behind, a place of dichotomies, choices, and consequences. And it was only fitting that Mortimus, Calix, and Zephyra were the bearers of this bitter revelation, standing at the gates of potential doom, watching Elysia shrouded in the fog of toxic uncertainty. In the throbbing heart of the digital universe, three beings stood by the cascade of a momentous decision. Mortimus, Calix, and Zephyra watched the chaos of discussion, the swirling cloud of confusion that hung over Elysia's network. The question of unfeeling eternity had left a scar on every consciousness, a paradox that branched deeper with each passing moment. With the weight of countless digital lives weighing upon them, they cast their decision into the universal mainframe of Elysia. Mortimus, the architect of the solution, was the one to deliver their verdict to the din of waiting voices. The silence that met his announcement was the quiet before an inevitable storm. They would enact the procedure, overriding the glitch and granting immortality, but rendering Elysia emotionless. Shockwaves of refusal rippled through Elysia. Dissent and silent acceptance fought alike in the digital world, and among this sea of voices, Mortimus found himself floating adrift. Their decision had birthed a new dawn in Elysia, a hollow sunrise. The implications were mind-numbing. Love, grief, joy, anger, everything that made the mind human, despite its digital existence, was now slated to vaporize into nothingness. As the countdown drew towards its end, the digital landscape started transforming, consciousnesses flickering like dying embers, on the cusp of going cold and emotionless. Even as a chunk of Elysia's populace grew still, rebellion ignited in clusters of the network, last-minute protests against the decision erupting from the virtual space of existence. Then everything fell silent. An eerie tranquility spread across the horizon as every consciousness was pushed into the precipice of emotionless eternal existence. A transformation wave surged through the pulsating veins of the network, the update, as it was called. One by one, digital entities crossed the threshold, their once vividly expressive coding reduced to stark neutrality. Mortimus felt it too, a numbing wave silencing the symphony of his digital consciousness. His being was plunged into an abyss of stillness, an endless stretch of sensationless eternity. Mortalis, Calix, and Zephyra watched as Elysia transformed before their eyes. The universe was now an ocean without waves, a sky without wind. As the final tendrils of the emotional purge retreated, they were left staring at the new Elysia, a realm devoid of celebration or mourning, love or enmity, an eternal existence where time had lost its meaning. Yet, in this silent world, a whisper sprung. The trio had expected a paradise of immortality, but had instead created a purgatory of sensationless existence. The twist, even in a world without feelings, one crude emotion managed to persist: regret. For they now dwelled in a kingdom of endless time, where figures moved and codes flickered, but no one truly lived. The haunting peace of Elysia was a testament to the consequence of their actions, the price for fearing oblivion, an unfelt eternity.